Well, hello everybody. Rainy Sunday afternoon on the 20-something. What have we got? The 27th of May, 2018. So this video is written to or sent to Mr. Turnbull, which I'll send him a copy of it. Anastasia Palaszczuk, the Queensland Premier, and the New South Wales Premier. So at this point, we haven't had any correspondence from any of those people. We've contacted the DPI to much the same silence. We've contacted the biosecurity to complete silence. We've contacted Brisbane City Council. Surprise, surprise, they came out to us. They actually sat down with us and they had a discussion with Lantana Removal Queensland. So that was a very, very good thing to do. And it opened up a lot of the eyes and ears of a lot of the things in the structure of this system and why we have these issues from the state government and how all this stuff came about. So this is a continuous timeline. It's on record as being a continuous timeline in the social media for that purpose of lobbying the government to change the policies and change the classification of Lantana. Now, we've had a lot of discussions. I've put a lot of stuff up there. I've flown the drones over a reasonable amount of land, which is nothing. It's a tip of the iceberg. I invited Mr. Turnbull to come up here. I invited Anastasia Palaszczuk and obviously the New South Wales Premier. But the New South Wales has the same infestations down through their country as well. Since the state government changed the policies on the classification of this weed so that they could then, between them and the councils, end up rigging the system so they didn't have to clean up the massive infestations on the sides of our roads throughout our suburbs and down all of the watercourses. You know, I challenged those people to have come up, which there was complete silence to this day. Now, if the people that they talk to go, well, is this guy telling us the truth? Because this is going to be a big problem for the next election. Yeah, well, that's up to them because those people haven't got in touch with me to have a look at the infestations. But now I'm having responses from Moreton Bay Regional Council, meetings with both Brisbane City Council, and soon I'll have them with Moreton Bay Regional. That one's to be set up. We're starting to get a much better idea of how this system actually worked with changing the classification on the weed. What I don't understand is the primary producers, the farmers, all have non-stop been saying through this social media campaign that for as long as they can remember through their generational running of farms, that the inspectors from the Department of Primary Industries came onto their properties and demanded this weed and that weed and that weed be removed. Now, it doesn't make much sense to me how a Department of Primary Industries inspector can say Lantana's got to be removed, and it had to be removed all that time. The state government, biosecurity, openly admit that the reason now that they changed the classification of the weed is because they lost control. They have absolutely no answer to how to eradicate Lantana. I eradicate Lantana for the last 30 plus years, no problems at all. Same as those same farmers that they walked onto their farms and demanded it be cleaned up. They cleaned it up, yet the government can't clean it up. But the government changed the laws, which is a very scary thing, when they change laws in secret, and they basically condemn all of us to a absolute bloodbath ecologically with a weed that in a bad year expands by 20 to 30%. In a good year, 50 to 100%. Their ability to contain this weed or control this weed is nil. Moreton Bay Regional Council, we have thousands of kilometres of this weed, probably tens of thousands of acres of that weed, down every watercourse, down the sides of the roads, in the watercourses, up the sides of mountains, all along the sides of the road, getting the public to the point that public's just used to seeing it. They think it's a part of the ecology. The insanity of it is just crazy because the government lost control of it. And the government wants to lie and tell people that it'd bankrupt the country if the country dealt with it. The figure that I would require to mount an extensive, massive campaign and train other operators to be able to operate in those same areas would be a pittance. It'd be a tiny, minuscule amount of the money being handed around all over the world to people who have no part of our lives. Yet as Australian citizens, we're second-class citizens. Our properties are being infected every single day by this weed, by government lands. And it's out of control. It's the insanity of how bad these infestations are. Somebody from Malcolm Turnbull's government should be hopping on a plane, coming up and going for a drive with us, picking up the tab for it, paying us for our time, and come for a drive with us and actually see these infestations. They can jump on the Lantana Removal Queensland Facebook page and have a look at some of the aerial shots of these infestations. They're minuscule. They're tiny, tiny little snippets of the puzzle. But there is absolutely no answer. And, you know, Moreton Bay Regional Council, through their letter, admit that. There is no policy in place for dealing with it, because the state government gave them the get-out-of-jail card to do nothing with it, because according to them it's a low-level weed now. You need to explain that to the public. How did something that was an absolute problem to the whole of the primary production industry of Australia, to the rural, to the actual urban industry of Australia, to urban real estate values of Australia, infected from your lands, your council lands, your state government lands, your national parks, your state forests? How did that suddenly get given up on because you had no answer to it? What was the plan? How was it going to get better? You can't give up on something unless you've beaten it. You can't just turn your back on it and go, well, we're clueless. We've spent millions and millions of dollars on scientists who have told us what we want to hear, but then told us there is no answer to it, because scientists don't do the work. That's your problem. You're dealing with people who hypothesize things. They figure out a algorithm to something. They don't physically do the work. That's your problem. You bet on the wrong person. I don't talk good English, but I tell you what, I can certainly murder lantana like it's going out of fashion, and do it ecologically in a manner that doesn't destroy the ecosystem. The rubbish poisoning of our waterways and of our lands, where we need to outcompete the product that we removed, is insanity. Why did you go down the path of these people? And why do you not do anything about changing course? Insanity, the definition of insanity, is keeping on doing what you're doing and expecting a different result. You bet on the wrong people. When we eradicate and remove lantana, we remove it physically. It's gone. It's taken away and it's disposed of. It's a final process. Every single plant, for every dollar spent, is gone and destroyed. We eradicate lantana in a huge amount of areas where there is zero reinfestation. Yet scientists have told you forever that there's a 4-year seedbed, there's a 7-year seedbed, there's a seedbed like this. I have proven endlessly, so many times, that I eradicate lantana and it never comes up there again. And I didn't take the soil. I don't interfere with the soil. I meet the requirements of the state government at their most stringent to say you cannot disturb and destroy the soil. And there's zero reinfestation. It's insanity to keep doing what you're doing and then hide from what I'm trying to get through. We need to empower the general public, draw them on board. You guys need to pay me to go down those footpaths, starting with Sanford and locally here. Clear out those footpaths, clear out those waterways, and take the general public with us. Put on fun days, put on the sausages and everything else, and get the families out there. The Sanford Knights are that ecologically a bunch of people that you look at their properties and you go, these people are motivated to care about the ecology. I know for a fact if you said to them, listen, we'll remove that material, we'll pay to remove the material, your part of the deal is that you keep that footpath clear. You look after it after that point. I know for a fact that after you had done your business, those people would take over those things because it would be an enormous boost to their asset value. But the future under the government that we have now, the federal government and the state government, is that not only will the infestations get worse because the government departments they bet on have no idea about this plant, the places that the plant is being allowed to live and the amount of water access these plants have has nothing to do with the ecology of the soil underneath. That's one of the greatest wives' tales in the world about this plant. It'll grow in absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. But if it has a fantastic water supply, it will flourish and it will choke everything down. Water is far more important to this plant than any other part of the ecological to understand. It really is the biggest single part of it. So the biggest thing is to get those plants out of those areas. We have to fight this as a war. We have to apply proper military strategies to this stuff. I can start mapping those things out tomorrow. We need to start sitting down with councils, with state governments, with DPI, with all of them, and start mapping out a proper strategical campaign to annihilate this plant. Don't give me the rubbish that you can't do it. I can do it. I can do it on any scale you want to pay for. Any scale. It's only a matter of training the operators to be able to operate in the environments that we need to. But we still have enough of a strategic crew to start working within those environments and making enormous inroads. We can't do it with volunteer rubbish. It's just ridiculous. They can barely keep up with the tourist side of it, which is all you spend money on. That's it. That's the sum total of where you spend money. The infestations that are outside of that, within the national parks, the state forests and the creeks, we need to have this strategic war footing basis of how we work out the value of the targets. These plants cannot be left in watercourses. They can't be left on the sides of roads where they're being pumped beautiful fresh water off those hard surfaces. They get a drink at every single time it rains. That's why they're on the sides of the roads. That's why they infest those particular areas. Simple understanding that the scientists can't explain to you. This plant, they say, puts out 12,000 seeds per plant. I accept that. I don't measure them, so I don't know. I accept that they say it's 12,000 seeds per plant. But a plant who has access to continuous water can seed all year round. Seed right through winter, seed all year round. The growth is 50 to 100% in those environments, and you're leaving them sitting on side of these roads just getting pumped that beautiful fresh water. All down those watercourses of those creeks, every gully and water trap funneling that water to the creeks is infested with this material for hundreds and thousands of kilometres. The insanity of that is easy to understand why I am so passionate about it. I'm not the enemy. I'm not hating on people for those things. I'm trying to get people and shake them enough to go, we need to start paying attention to this. I'm a patriot of my country. I love my country. What's not being seen and what we're trusting from the information we're being told is going to be genocide in another 2 years. We don't have to wait 20 years. We don't have to wait another 10 years. It's going to be a lot quicker than that. If you don't have a massive infestation of lantana on your property, from Petrie through to Sanford and all the way to the tip of the Cape, just wait a very, very short time, you will. The property valuations of this material now will destroy the real estate market. People will not buy properties with the infestations. You can't buy properties anywhere where there's infestations anywhere around it. We have a policy from the state government that says they have a bird poo policy. Their way of defining a brand new outbreak, and an outbreak that will be dealt with, is by the distance a bird can fly from an infestation. That's assuming that you know where every infestation is. This is how much of an insult to the general public's mentality that this subject is. This is factual, documented information directly from the people who handle all of this, that are in charge of all of this. It's hard not to laugh while they're so seriously, you know where every infestation is. Now that system falls arse over head when you consider, do you think a bird could fly from the existing infestation and not be pooping on an existing infestation somewhere else? And then you won't know it's a new infestation, will you? Their mentality of what they were trying to say in their layman way was that way they could tell, and that's 360-degree flight. It just is insanity. Their system was that they were going to try and stop the new infestation from coming back to the old infestation and creating a bigger infestation. It doesn't work. It's complete. Whatever scientist told you that, whatever person sat down and rationalized that to you, man, it's beyond going into. We are the experts at getting into the steep terrain, the really tough places that it must be gotten out of first. It is being spread much more rapidly by water and gravity. That's why we have to get to those areas and clean them out of those areas coming back down, and clean them out of the watercourses and the sides of the roads. Not from the aesthetics point of view. You're missing the point if you're only hearing parts of it. We need to be sitting down around big tables with lots of people having these discussions, because time matters. The amount of money that's going to be paid on this subject really matters. And the amount of politicians and officials who are going to be losing their job over this issue over the next couple of years, if this keeps going and wants to be an open timeline and see how far it goes, be my guest. I got the time. I'll be here. You won't be. I can guarantee you guys will be looking for a new job if you don't start picking the phones up and getting this moving. This is a serious situation, and the film footage from it has already been catastrophic, but it's going to get a lot worse as the film abilities get much better and more people come on board to be able to say, well, okay, this is how we get more of a message out to the general public. This will go viral. There are that many people within the country who care ecologically about the environment, and it's proven that the state government and the federal government can't be bothered to pick up a phone and sit down and go, okay, we need to do something about this. There is no nice way to ask these questions and try to get people to see these things. The past is the past, and I can't change what's already happened with these weeds. But we cannot continue this insanity further down a path that continues that infestation levels. You know, Lantana's one of many, many weeds, but that's just a smokescreen to continue to complain and say, oh, well, you know, it's out of control, so we gave up on it. What was your plan? How is it going to get better? That's the question. It was never going to get better. You have no management plan. All of the councils, you drive any of these highways and have a look out the window, and it's an endless sea up the main roads of tobacco plant, of lantana, of many, 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 many more plants continuously. And the only thing they can throw up, oh, but there's much more aggressive ones that we're worried about coming to. I don't care about those ones. We'll get them while we're doing these. We are the experts at getting into the areas you need dealt with today. We need an injection of funds and a working, starting strategy. And it's peanuts. You know, the money that this would cost to actually set up and have a meaningful strategic task force. We're not talking about people to sit around a table anymore. We're talking about a meaningful task force of actual workers that do the work, that are hitting the plant where it lives, starting in areas and then bringing other people into those areas and training them up on the procedures and how we do it, and then continuing to farm that out to communities all across the country. It's not rocket science to do that. It's not hard to do. the insanity of it that I don't understand is how hard it is to get people to go, well, look, he's either nuts or he's right. All you got to do is come and have a look at the infestations, come and look at what I'm explaining, and you can see how they fit together. You can understand why I'm so passionate about the infestations, why I'm so passionate about where these infestations live. It's because of the water they're getting pumped and the greenness of these infestations. These are growing at a rate that it's not just the lantana. The vine material that's growing with the lantana is an addition to this catastrophe, and it is on a level that it can be not there one day and in 2 weeks later be just a mat that you cannot believe. And that, on top of the lantana, on top of the other issues, on top of the cat's claw, is a catastrophe that is a catastrophe. It's an explosion. It's not just an increase, it is an explosion. And it's choking out all of our environment. The fauna cannot get access to any of these areas because of this stuff. So please, I implore you, whatever, I can't speak that well, implore you to at least ask the questions of what I'm trying to tell you. You know, get people to hook up, and urgently. This is urgent. You know, next week I'll have meetings with Moreton Bay Regional Council. And, you know, when you take those people around these areas and you show them the infestations and go, well, you know, you said you had some sort of management plan, and the management plan that's going to come out for the government's trying to get re-elected is that they're writing off suburbs. Those people's resale value of their homes are going to go in the toilet. And those people are being educated and are going to be much better educated very shortly. Who do you think they're going to hold responsible for their valuations of their properties going in the toilet? I know who is responsible. And they're not picking the phone up. The biggest thing about this particular subject is that we can train the workforce to actually physically do the work, to copy what we do and how we do it. It's going to be more intense to teach the individual people at the top of the thing of operating the machinery, but they have to be created. There's many other areas that those people will be hugely valuable to our society at that skill level of operation. It's not everybody. You could bring me people who are really good in machinery and I'll tell you that they're not the people for us. I can tell you that now. There will be other people who will have the talent that they'll have much more respect, that those will be the people that you need to invest in because they'll be able to do it safely. The other people are just too cocky. This is fighter pilot stuff off an aircraft carrier. It's the right people can do it and the other people can't. But then being able to train that all over the country and be able to duplicate that and create that going, and then create the community network to be involved in that network. That's how we beat Lantana. That's why scientists couldn't beat it, was because they couldn't imagine a workforce that was so connected. That's what I do. I've been in charge of men and machinery and equipment and work sites and things like that my whole life. Being able to motivate people and get them highly excited about what they're doing in taking their own country back, and then being able to dedicate those and focus those assets on that job. In that, it relies a large amount of taking charge. Not everything's always going to happen the best way you want it. You're always going to have situations that aren't perfect, but you keep dedicated to the task and don't destroy the environment for one little piece of it. But you've got to be taking action. You can't be sitting on a fence. You can't be saying this is going to repair itself or get better somewhere. It is so far out of control, it's insane. And the cost involved is costing our families, our children, and our livelihoods. There are so many people that are in a terrible place that their sale of their homes is going to be a terrible, terrible thing. They're going to have no resale value in it. So, you know, we need to get serious about what we do from this point on. And it will sort out the people that actually do care and the people that actually do something about this. We are action people. We get stuff done. We don't sit on fences and want to talk about this. The only reason why I say about the meeting we're talking about those things is we have to understand where this plant occupies and why the councils failed and why the state government failed in those things. It's because they attacked the plant with the wrong information. They were given the information from the people who want to sell you poisons and then weaken the ecology from that thing. But they sold the poisons. You know, we don't weaken the environment and the ecosystem. You can't do that in a creek. You can't do that in a watercourse. A tremendous amount of the work that we will be doing will be hopping down into creeks with machinery and passing material up out of terribly difficult sites. But that is the difference between us and everybody else. You know, we are vegetation management specialists. We're machine operators second. We don't destroy stuff. We go around stuff to protect it, to get things out. We don't just go, you know what, we can flatten the whole of the forest area because we've got a 50-50 law in the environmental section that says if 50% of the material is this weed, then we can flatten the whole lot. You know, we work tremendously fast through areas that are tremendously complicated to deliver those outcomes. But it means then the regeneration side of it is not very difficult. But look, that's enough. You either get the point or you don't. You're either going to do something about it or you're going to continue to shove your head in the sand. But I can promise you one thing, is that public opinion is already on this. Public are already discussing this in massive amounts. There's close to 60,000 people have already had access to this information. So from here it will get much, much worse. And now that the videos are directly to you, I will also copy and paste you in on the flyover footage, which is nothing on the footage I still have to post. And the footage, as my abilities have gotten better, is much, much more damaging. This material must be dealt with. We must have very, very serious and stringent changes in policy to get this under control, and it will not bankrupt the country. If that process keeps being the process that comes out of the thing, it will have a terrible consequence. It's absolutely wrong. But we can't hide our heads in the sand and pretend this isn't going to get worse. This material is in an explosion situation with where you've left it now. You know, I have tremendous footage of parks that you can't even read the sign properly that says that it's a nature reserve. It is that covered in this material that you can't even read it, and that's on a main road. How the hell does a council drive past that stuff and ignore it? Acres and acres and acres of this vine completely covering everything, every inch of the ground, and they drive past it every day. And Malcolm Turnbull feels well enough about this subject, Anastasia Palaszczuk feels well enough about this subject, that they make a stand by her doing the no clearing laws, which nobody believes, and yet no animal can get to those assets and utilise those plants, utilise any of the trees. Nobody can walk down those footpaths. They're completely covered in this material. All of our services, from Telstra through to Energex, can't access those areas to where they need to set up properly. It's just realistically something that we really need to have some serious talks about. And we need to see that mowing grass and looking after the environment is actually a benefit, not a cost, not a waste. The more we get people out into the real world and enjoying these areas because they're not infested in this rubbish, the better the health of the country will be, and the more it will unite everybody. This subject has the potential for governments, governments to actually change the standing of the community, and for people to unite because of action. fast, decisive action, taking this seriously, changes all of this speak around to being able to film the actual benefits of what's happening, taking our country back. It'd have to cement many politicians' positions, many councillors' positions, to be unmovable because they backed the right outcomes. Instead of saying, oh no, it'd cost too much money, so we won't do any part of it, we'll just pretend it'll magically disappear somewhere along the line. Might be best to get a second opinion on that and figure out whether it will go away. Anyway, I'm Gary, Lantana Removal Queensland. Please join my passion. Please write to the Prime Minister. Please write to Anastasia Palaszczuk and the New South Wales Premier. Write to them all. Write to the Department of Primary Industries. Write to the biosecurity. Write to them and ask them. Ask them the questions I laid out for you. So what were they thinking? How were they going to stop a plant that grows at that rate by ignoring it? How was that going to get better? You know, none of us, every single person that's heard this can understand what was the plan. You can't have something growing at that level and it's going to get better somewhere. It's impossible. So at the end of the day, I challenge you to make a difference and to ask the questions. And if you ask the questions, they'll start to clean up our neighbourhoods. They'll start to take an interest because they'll go, well, public opinion is that people do care about the ecology. Don't be used to seeing it all around your properties and everywhere you drive and do nothing about it, because it's only getting a bigger problem. Thank you very much for popping in. Please like our videos. Please subscribe. Please share our videos. It makes a big difference if you like our page, if you become a part of the family and help to fight this fight. You know, it makes a big difference. That's the problem. Everybody feels as though their voice is unimportant. This is an opportunity for your voice, whether you're a wildlife carer, whether you live in Sanford and you love your community and you want to see it cleaned up, or you're just an average person like me who's surrounded by lantana and this is my business, and I can't understand why they make such a fuss out of killing it. It's a piece of cake. I cannot understand this system. I understand why they're doing it, but I don't understand how they ever expected to get away with it. Well, hopefully they change their mind and they decide to do things real quickly. Bye bye.